Howdy everybody, this is Kamikaze Avalanche. Today I wanted to go over how to use the tile map feature and draw things in the tile maps and have them appear in the game as separate packed scenes with rich details and functionality just by painting specific tiles. So here I'm trying to do a 5-step process for all of these going out, and the first step is understanding what the end result will be. Second step is we're going to set our standards for how we're going to mark up the map and decide what we're going to mark up. The third step is we're going to create custom data and paint the tiles with those data. We will prep the script which implements this with the feature packed scenes. The last step is when the map loads, we're going to go and we're going to check every tile and then instantiate the features. And then as a small bonus at the end, I'm going to show you how to unpaint the tile when the feature is removed by code. So the first step is to understand what the end result will be. So in my map, I have painted a treasure chest. I have also painted the spawn points. I had painted an entry level, but since the player can't go back out of the entry, I delete it. I remove it when it's created. But this particular mission is to interact with the treasure chest and then get to the exit. So when we look at the map, you'll see that my treasure chest does not have this interact icon, and neither does the exit. So these are actual full nodes that are instantiated in that location on the map. And I queued things up poorly. I don't actually have an interact card in my hand, so I'm going to go and set it up. So now I have an interact card in my hand, and you're going to see I have the treasure chest. My character has the mission goals of loot the chest. I've got a card that interacts. I'm going to open the chest, and my mission goal is to get to the exit, and the chest is removed from the game. So that's what I'm trying to do. I have the treasure chest drawn on the map, and I want the packed scene to be in that location. So let's quit the game and let's go and look at what the maps look like. So I've got all of my maps here in one folder. That was a small cavern. No, that's the large cavern. Small cavern layer, U-shape, right? So you can see I have the player entry, the treasure chest, the spawn points, and the exit drawn on the map. So here, the second step is I want to set the standards for marking up the map. I started this project in Godot 4.2, which just had the tile map. I understand that 4.3 has the tile map layers. That's why I'm getting this warning triangle. You could adjust the process to deal with tile map layers, but I'm effectively doing tile map layers, and I started doing it in 4.2 when I started. And I have 3 layers to my maps. So I have a base layer, and the base layer is where I set whether a tile is walkable or not. And the base layer, I'm drawing the walls and I'm drawing the spaces where the player can walk on. I have a third layer here that's decoration, and it only makes the map pretty, and I do that so that you can see that I'm drawing pretty edges to the edge of the tiles instead of making it so jagged. And the decoration layer, it's just visual effects. It has no effect on the gameplay whatsoever. And you can add as many decoration layers as you want. It It's fine, it's not going to change anything. And then, as a standard, I have this middle layer, and that's where I'm just using this layer to draw these objects that I want to instantiate. So the entry, the exit, the spawn points, the treasure chests, although I don't know why anyone would get that treasure chest based on where the player starts. So I might as well actually just remove it unless I set some hidden secret goal that you get both treasure chests in a map. Note to self, add a secret achievement to my game for getting unnecessary treasure chests. So as a standard, I'm painting these features on a specific layer. And that just makes it easier to understand and manipulate the map and draw the map and create things like that. Step 3 is we're going to create the custom data layers and paint the tiles. So what do I mean by that? So once I've created the tile set, and I just have one main tile set for the game, and in this tile set I've added all of the PNG files with each of the tiles. I have them in there, and I'm actually using the top one for most of my added features just because I like to have a lot of different artwork in the styles. And so if you go to the tile set, there's this drop down here called custom data layers, and I created a bunch of them, and the first one is walkable. And if we look at my tile sets, I have walkable tiles here, and if you come to paint, I can click walkable. I can select a tile and turn it on so that you can walk on this tile and that tile and that tile. I actually don't want to do that because these are wall pieces, but I could come here to this, right? So you see my abandoned mines. I've got some tiles here that are walkable. I didn't bother, I'm right clicking to move that. I didn't bother to paint the ones that I'm not interested in using, but the paint property is walkable and I want to set it on, and boom, I want these 9 tiles to be walkable. So whenever I add those tiles to a tile map or tile layer, those are going to be walkable. I could also set it with player spawn. And when I set player spawn, I'm right clicking to move this. Whenever this tile or this tile is added to the map, it's set as a spawn point. I decided that if I wanted to use the 2 wide entries, the left side would be, but I don't do that. I don't like that. I just ended up using these. That makes it a little bit more complicated, especially when I try and remove them. So I actually should just get rid of that. The treasure chest one, right? I've got this treasure chest and this treasure chest painted so that if I draw them on the tile map, it sees them as treasure chests. So coming back to the data layers, I've got walkable, the player spawn point, the enemy spawn points, the chests, the exits, an obstacle, and a door. And I do set some as obstacles because sometimes I just want to make sure, checking and making sure that someone can't walk anywhere if I happen to draw that particular tile on that second layer up. Alright, so I've got the custom data layers, I've got my tile set, I've painted the tiles for how I want them to show up. And all I have to do is create the tile map, and I'm adding all of those painted features. To the base, I have the walkable ones, but I'm adding all the features that I want to add scenes to this middle layer, and that's where I'm going to check to add them. So I have a script for the tile maps, and I've named every tile map just tile map because I'm only using one in any scene, and I've got a common script for them. And I have the packed scenes that contain these features and the scripts and the codes and the functionality for it. So let me actually come over here, and I have the treasure chest scene, and if I come to 2D, I'm not actually drawing the treasure chest because I don't need to. The treasure chest is already drawn on the map and it's going to stay in place. I'm just adding the area 2D, I'm adding the collision shape, I'm adding the coding that manages it, right? And so the coding says, do they click on it with a interact while they're in an interact state, then go ahead and run this other code. And I'm going to come back to here for the erase when we hit the bonus feature. But my packed scene is the treasure chest node with the code, the area 2D, the collision shape, and that interact icon that's toggled on or off depending on if the player can interact with it, because in some maps the mission is to collapse all the spawn points, so the spawn points have the interact icon. So don't need to add the artwork for this. However, let's go back to the tile map and the code for that. So in this case, the treasure chest, I'm creating in my tile map code a variable for the treasure chest, and I'm preloading that treasure chest as the packed scene. On ready, when the map loads, and I'm doing this as a ready, and I will add a different map. I'm using the same battle scene, the battle arena, but I'm loading in a different map depending on the choices that the player made before they got to the scene. So they chose a map and they chose a mission before they got to this point. So I dynamically spawn it in here, but that's for a different tutorial. On ready, I call the spawn features function. So let's go down to the spawn features function. For I in range, get use direct position x, get use direct dot end dot x. So what does this mean? I am looking at, remember, this is code that will only work in something that extends a tile map, or I'm sure a tile layer in the new code. The extending the tile map is important. You couldn't just put this code in a node 2D and expect it to work, because it wants to pull from that. This code is looking at, okay, what's the smallest x coordinate we use and what's the largest x coordinate we use? And it's gathering the list of those, and then for each of those, let's say our map starts at 0, 0 and it goes to 10, 10. It's going to go through all of the 0, 1, 0, 2, 0, 3, 0, 4, and it's going to scan through. It's going to do a vertical scan in this case because I'm looking at the X and then I'm counting all the Y's for that. So it's going to go down and scan all of that first row and column. That's a column. All of that first column, and then it's going to scan all of the second column, and it's going to scan all of the third column. And it's going to say, I want you, for each of these, set the coordinate as 0, 0, 0, 1. And then I want you to look, and I want you to get the cell tile data for that first layer. And this is why it was important for me to have the standard where I draw it on that middle layer, right? If it has no tile data, carry on. However, if it is painted with that custom data chest, I'm going to instantiate treasure chest, right? And that treasure chest is this preload I have up here for treasure chest. Instantiate at the coordinates, so 0, 0, 0, 1, whatever it is. And again, this is important that this code is done in the tile map because we need to extend that coordinate information. I want the position to be mapped to local at those coordinates, and then I add the child. So if it's a treasure chest, we're adding that treasure chest scene, this one. Oh, treasure chest, let me go back to my map. The code's all the same. If it is a player spawn point, we instantiate the player spawn point, exit, enemy spawn, and door. The same thing. We're scanning each coordinate, we're looking to see if it's got that data layer, and then we're instantiating that scene at that location. And that's how we get in the game those packed scenes and those locations so that I don't need to go and manually add them place to place. Alright, so that covers the main part of the tutorial where I'm using the custom data layers of the tile map set, scanning each of those codes and adding them to there. So let's go back to the treasure chest. And one of the things that I pointed out was that I'm not drawing the treasure chest again in the packed scene. However, for the treasure chests and doors and spawn points, I want to erase them from the map when the player collapses them or interacts with them. And I might go back and I might add some animation. Note to self, add some animation for collapsing treasure spawn points. When they interact, it's going to call this basic interact within the treasure chest script. It's going to emit a signal so that if that's part of the player's quest, the mission knows that they opened the trash chest, the card's played, put the card to the discard pile, and then I'm going to get the parent, right? And since when we called the code, you'll recall we called the code and we instantiate it as a child of the tile map. So when I'm running the game, let's go ahead and run the game again real quick and take a look at the remote. You can see what I'm referring to here. So if we continue in and we go to remote, card battle arena, the spawn point, the treasure chest, the spawn point, these are all children of the tile map. You can see it actually broke out the layers, so it's breaking it out for me anyway. But in the remote viewer, you can see that these are packed scenes are children of the tile map itself. So in the treasure chest code, we get this parent, and I'm saying tile map.erase cells, and I'm erasing it from that layer. And since on that layer, I'm only drawing these objects, in this case, it's going to erase the treasure chest. If it's a door, it's going to erase the door. And then I'm queue freeing the treasure chest, so this and all of its children are going to disappear, and it's going to be cleaner at that point. All right, so this tutorial ran a little bit long. I felt there were some extra things I wanted to bring up and that bonus content, but I hope you picked up something and got some ideas, and hopefully you have some things that you might want to change or implement. I find that doing this made drawing the maps significantly easier, and have a good day, y'all.